Hey there, sleepyheads. Welcome back to the channel. Before we drift into tonight's tale of hidden patterns and the gentle logic that seems to weave through the Land of Ooo, I'd love to know where in the world you are watching from tonight. And what time is it for you right now? Drop it in the comments below. It's always magical seeing how far and wide this sleepy little community reaches. All right, lights low, blankets up. Let's begin. Tonight, we're going to take a soft, wandering journey through the quiet undercurrents of Ooo. On the surface, this world can seem chaotic, a jumble of kingdoms, ruins, and strange characters all thrown together like pieces from 1,000 different stories. But if you slow down, you let your eyes rest on a quiet order, a rhythm. The Land of Ooo has always carried that dreamlike quality. It is a place of candy people and talking animals, but also a graveyard of ancient machines. It feels like nonsense, and there's a strange balance to it. Every kingdom, every wanderer, every mystery seems to fall into place, as if the land itself remembers. It's as though in endless... Think about how often ruins are scattered across the landscape. A shattered freeway here, a collapsed skyscraper there, standing side by side with the cheerful candy town or a grassy meadow. These fragments aren't just background. They're threads, reminders of a past world, still woven into the fabric of the present one. Even when the characters don't speak of them, even when Finn runs past them without a second glance, they are part of Oo's hidden structure. The new grows in the cracks of the old, and the past quietly shapes the stage for the future. And then there are the people of Ooo. At first glance, they seem like pure whimsy. A princess made of bubblegum, a wizard who wears pajamas, a vampire who plays bass guitar. But look closer, and patterns begin to emerge. Their personalities may be bright and eccentric, yet many of them echo archetypes far older than themselves. Marceline is not just a quirky musician. She is the eternal wanderer, carrying centuries of memory. Bubblegum is not just candy. She is the ruler scientist, the one who builds, protects, and sometimes controls. Even Finn, the human boy, is more than just a child adventurer. He is the symbol of growth, the reminder that innocence and courage can still thrive in a broken world. Oo's hidden logic lies in these patterns waiting for us to notice. The more you watch, the more you feel it. A strange sense that every odd detail, every bizarre kingdom or passing character belongs exactly where it is, as though guided by unseen hands. Even the most chaotic moments, the silliest throwaway jokes, can ripple outward and connect back to the greater web of Ooo. It's comforting to think of it like a great quilt, stitched together from many different fabrics. Some pieces are soft and new, some are ragged and ancient, some sparkle with bright color, and others are dark and worn. Yet when they are sewn together, they form a picture that feels whole. That's what Ooo is like, a patchwork that somehow fits, even when its pieces shouldn't. Consider how many stories begin with something small and playful, only to reveal greater meaning later. Finn and Jake exploring a dungeon may just seem like a simple adventure. But then, the Lich emerges from those very same dungeons, and suddenly, the playfulness has turned into prophecy. A crown that once seemed like a silly trinket becomes a symbol of tragedy and power. Again and again, Ooo invites us to look twice, to see beyond the surface, to notice the quiet threads weaving its world together. There's also something dreamlike in how Oo's kingdoms are arranged. The Candy Kingdom, with its cheerful houses and gumdrop citizens, sits not far from the dark and shadowy Nightosphere. Fire and Ice Kingdoms stand across from each other like elemental mirrors. And in between lie forests, plains, and hidden realms, each carrying their own role in this delicate balance. It's as though the land is less a map and more a dreamscape, where symbols float side by side, unconcerned with borders or distance. The order is not geographical, it is symbolic. Fire and ice exist in tension, candy and slime in contrast, each kingdom playing its note in Oo's larger symphony. If you pause for a moment and imagine drifting above the land of Ooo, looking down on its patchwork kingdoms and scattered ruins, you might see the pattern more clearly. It's not a straight line. It's not a tidy structure. It's more like a mandala, an intricate design where every curve and every symbol reflects something else. From the skies with stars glowing overhead, you could almost see Oo's shape as part of something greater, a dream breathing itself into existence. And the dream doesn't only live in the land, it whispers through the characters' journeys. Notice how often Finn's path feels guided by strange coincidences. He finds the Enchiridion at just the right time. He crosses paths with the Lich when destiny calls him. He learns about his past in fragments, each one revealed only when he is ready. These aren't random. They feel like steps on a quiet staircase, leading him toward an unseen truth. The same goes for Marceline. Her friendships, her rivalries, her songs, each one pulls her into places where she must confront her own history. Even Simon, long lost in the madness of the crown, circles back to himself as though Ooo is gently pulling him home. The logic of this world doesn't push. It guides softly, like a river. Even when its characters are adrift, the current carries them toward meaning. Think about the way Ooo reveals itself across time. In one episode, you might encounter a light-hearted joke about banana guards falling asleep on duty. In another, you might be shown a vision of the Great Mushroom War that left the Earth forever changed. These shifts in tone could feel jarring, but instead they mirror the way dreams drift from one image to the next. Light to dark, playful to serious, nonsense to prophecy. The rhythm isn't random. It is the rhythm of memory itself. Just as our dreams stitch together fragments of the day with long-forgotten images, Ooo stitches together laughter and sorrow until they become one. And what's fascinating is how this rhythm extends beyond single episodes. Adventure Time as a whole is a tapestry of moods and mysteries. A viewer can step into any corner of it and still find that same pulse, that same quiet sense of belonging. The gentle threads of Ooo stretch far across the story, and when you tug on one, others quiver in response. A song Marceline hums in an early season may echo back years later in a completely different context. A strange artifact glimpsed in the background may resurface in an entirely new story. It's as though Ooo itself refuses to forget. That sense of memory is central to Oo's hidden logic. The land feels alive with remembrance, carrying traces of every story within it. Old machines lie buried in the dirt, still humming faintly as if they too recall the age of humanity. The magical gems, like the ones from the Enchiridion or the elemental crowns, are more than just tools. They are repositories of history, each holding a piece of the past. Even characters embody memory. Marceline remembers the world before Ooo was born. Simon remembers the pain of his choices, even when buried under the Ice King's madness. Princess Bubblegum, in her way, remembers by building. Each candy citizen she creates is a form of legacy, a reflection of her ongoing memory of what her kingdom should be. Memory in Ooo is not passive. It shapes the present. Just as our own dreams carry echoes of our past experiences, Oo's events and characters are constantly shaped by what has come before. It may seem like a land of whimsy, but beneath that playfulness lies a deep continuity. That continuity is what makes the land feel whole. Imagine for a moment that Ooo is less of a place and more of a song. Each kingdom, each ruin, each character is a note. Some are bright and cheerful, like the playful tones of the Candy Kingdom. Others are low and resonant, like the sorrowful hum of Simon's crown. And when these notes are played together, they create harmony. Sometimes the harmony sounds chaotic. Sometimes it sounds sad. But always, if you listen closely, you can hear the underlying melody weaving through it all. It is the melody of cycles repeating, of symbols returning, of archetypes playing their roles once more. This is why so many moments in Adventure Time feel strangely fated. When Finn discovers a sword in a cavern, it's not just a weapon. It's the next verse in his song. When Bubblegum faces another crisis in her kingdom, it's not just politics. It's the chorus of her role as builder and ruler, repeating once again. Even Jake, so often laid back and careless, falls into this rhythm. His destiny is tied not just to Finn, but to the multiverse itself. His shape-shifting body becomes a metaphor for the way reality bends and shifts, yet always returns to its core form. And so Oo's hidden logic feels like a gentle hand guiding all things, not in a rigid way, but in a flowing, organic rhythm. The land does not demand perfection. It allows chaos. It allows nonsense. But even in the silliest of places, the pattern hums quietly beneath. A pie-throwing candy citizen is not disconnected from a cosmic battle with the Lich. Both belong to Oo's dream, just as both joy and fear belong to ours. The more you watch, the more you feel that Ooo is not simply a world set after an apocalypse. It is something closer to a dream being dreamt by the earth itself. A dream where broken pieces are not discarded, but transformed into symbols, kingdoms, and stories. And because dreams often work in symbols, Oo's logic is symbolic too. Ice stands against fire. Candy stands against decay. Life stands against death. But always one exists only because of the other. The balance is not perfect, but it is ever present. If you imagine walking across Ooo at night with the stars stretching above you, you might see these patterns more clearly. The glow of the Ice Kingdom glitters in the distance, cold and eternal. The fiery light of the Fire Kingdom smolders on the horizon, pulsing like a living heart. Between them, forests rustle with secrets, rivers wind like threads of silver, and ruins rest like ancient scars. Each place holds its own meaning, but together they tell the larger story. And you, wandering through it, would feel as though the land itself is whispering, guiding your steps without words. This dreamlike order is what makes Ooo so comforting, even when it is frightening. Because in dreams we accept contradictions. We accept that a candy princess can rule over a kingdom built beside a field of bones. We accept that a vampire can sing a lullaby on a hill that once held skyscrapers. And in Ooo, as in dreams, we trust that even when things make no sense, they belong exactly where they are. And perhaps that is the truest expression of Oo's hidden logic. It does not erase chaos. It does not reject nonsense. It embraces them, weaving them into the larger whole. It says, yes, the world can be silly, and yes, the world can be tragic, and both are necessary for this story to go on. When we think about Ooo as a dream, it becomes easier to understand why its stories feel both strange and deeply familiar. Dreams do not follow the laws of geography or politics. They are ruled by symbols, by moods, by the pull of memory. In Ooo, this is why ruins sit side by side with candy villages, and why cosmic beings share the same sky with banana guards. The dream is not about strict realism. It is about connection. It is about how one image flows into another, forming a sequence that feels meaningful even when logic alone cannot explain it. That's what gives Adventure Time its bedtime quality, too. Every story is like a dream you've had before, half forgotten but strangely comforting. The gentle threads of Ooo carry you from laughter into sadness, from fear into hope. And you accept it because, deep down, your own dreams move the same way. This is why so many fans describe the show as feeling personal, as though it understands their own inner worlds. The hidden order of Ooo is not just the lands, it is the same hidden order that we carry inside ourselves. Let us think for a moment about the ruins scattered across the land. They are some of the clearest examples of these dreamlike threads. A giant, half-buried war machine may appear in the middle of a green field. Broken highways lead to nowhere, stretching into rivers or forests that reclaimed them long ago. These images remind us of what came before, of a world destroyed by the Mushroom War. Yet instead of being painted as pure tragedy, these ruins are softened by Oo's dream logic. They are not monuments of despair, but quiet reminders. A robot rusting in the grass looks less like a threat and more like a memory returning in gentle form. The war is over, but its echoes are woven into Oo's fabric, always present, but rarely overwhelming. And in these echoes, we find continuity. The war gave birth to magic returning, to strange mutations and kingdoms rising. Without the apocalypse, there would be no Candy Kingdom, no Ice King, no wandering human boy to carry the mantle of hero. Oo's dream threads take destruction and weave it into creation, turning loss into fertile ground for stories yet to come. This is the hidden balance, the way Ooo breathes. It's also important to notice how characters themselves carry this dreamlike balance. Simon Petrikov is a perfect example. A man who once wandered ancient museums becomes the Ice King, a figure both tragic and comical. His story threads together history, magic, madness, and love until they cannot be separated. Through him, Ooo shows us how a single character can embody contradiction, how silliness and sorrow can coexist in one form. And even in his most nonsensical moments, there is always that hidden undercurrent, pulling him back toward who he truly is. Finn, too, is carried by these invisible threads. His journey often feels like it drifts between coincidence and destiny. He meets characters at just the right time, finds artifacts when the world is ready for him to hold them, and learns truths about himself when he has grown enough to accept them. It is tempting to call this fate, but in Ooo it feels softer than that. It feels like the land itself is gently arranging things around him, guiding him along paths without force. Finn is free, yet never alone. The dream carries him, the same way our own dreams carry us through images we do not choose but still feel deeply tied to. Marceline's thread is woven in memory and music. Her songs act like bridges between past and present, revealing her centuries of life and the pain of what she has lost. When she strums her bass and sings, she is not just performing, she is remembering, and in remembering, she connects herself to Oo's larger rhythm. Her music lingers through the series like a soft refrain, returning when needed, reminding us that time may pass, but the song remains. And then there is Princess Bubblegum, who seems at first like a whimsical monarch made of candy. But the more we watch, the more we see the depth of her thread. She is an architect of life itself, a scientist who creates citizens, structures, and defenses out of sugar and chemistry. Her choices are often pragmatic, sometimes cold, yet always in service of her kingdom's survival. She is Oo's builder, shaping the dream into form, preserving what might otherwise dissolve. Through her, we see another part of Oo's logic, the logic of creation, order, and protection, even in a world that thrives on chaos. What ties all these characters together is that their journeys are not random. They are not simply eccentric people bumping into one another. They are archetypes in motion, woven into Oo's quilt. The land places them where they must be, not always for their own comfort, but for the balance of the greater whole. In this way, Ooo itself becomes a kind of storyteller. Its hidden threads are not just background details. They are the guiding lines of a narrative that is being told and retold, echoing across cycles of time. And cycles are another part of this hidden logic. Again and again, we see destruction followed by renewal, loss followed by rebirth. The Mushroom War destroys humanity, but from its ashes rises a land of candy and magic. Simon loses himself to the crown, but centuries later, he finds his way back to love and sanity. Finn grows from boyhood into maturity, only to rediscover the value of simplicity in the end. Every story echoes another, like ripples on a pond, spreading outward but always circling back to their source. This cyclical rhythm is not just comforting. It is deeply symbolic. It mirrors the way nature works. Seasons turn. Day becomes night. Forests regrow after fire. Rivers carve new paths after floods. Ooo, though fantastical, follows this same rhythm. It breathes in cycles, always balancing destruction with creation, chaos with order, sorrow with joy. That's why, even when the show touches on darkness, it never lingers there completely. The cycle always continues, and light returns. If you imagine lying under Oo's night sky, you might sense this pattern in the stars themselves. Each twinkle is like a story, some burning brightly in the present, others fading but still remembered. Together they form constellations, shapes that connect points of light into meaning. Ooo is just like that, a constellation of stories. At first, the dots seem scattered, but when you step back, you see the design. The threads form a picture. And what is most remarkable is that this picture is never static. Just as constellations shift as the Earth turns, Oo's design keeps evolving. Characters change, kingdoms rise and fall, new mysteries appear. Yet the hidden order remains, quietly tying everything together, ensuring that even as the dream shifts, its meaning persists. This is what makes Ooo endlessly rich. You can wander through it, revisit its episodes, and always find new threads you hadn't noticed before. A passing line of dialogue suddenly connects to a revelation seasons later. A strange symbol glimpsed in a book reappears in a different realm. Nothing is wasted. Everything belongs. The dream holds it all. And so, as we drift deeper into this reflection, we can start to see that Ooo is more than just a setting for adventure. It is a living pattern, a tapestry, a dream made solid. Its chaos is only on the surface. Beneath, it hums with harmony, whispering to us through cycles, archetypes, and memories. It tells us that nothing is ever lost, that even ruins have meaning, that even nonsense fits into the greater song. When we listen to Ooo in this way, as though it were a song or a dream, we begin to notice how even the smallest details hum with meaning. A snail waving in the background, a trinket lying on the floor of a dungeon, a mural half hidden in a cave wall. All of these are part of the pattern. At first they may seem playful, even meaningless. But as the story continues, we realize they belong to Oo's larger rhythm. They are echoes, subtle reminders that the world is not silent but alive, murmuring in quiet tones to anyone willing to notice. This is part of what makes Ooo feel so comforting, even in its strangeness. It does not hide its scars. The ruins of the old world are always visible. The shadows of death and loss are always near. And yet, they are softened by the dream. They are transformed into scenery for stories of friendship, growth, and love. In Ooo, sorrow and joy do not cancel each other out. They coexist, woven together like threads in the same fabric. That coexistence is Oo's hidden logic, an acceptance that all things, no matter how different, can be part of the same whole. Think of the kingdoms as examples. The Fire Kingdom, blazing with intensity and passion. The Ice Kingdom, cold and isolating, yet filled with fragile longing. The Candy Kingdom, sweet and playful, but also fragile and easily corrupted. Each kingdom feels like an exaggeration of one quality, a dream image brought to life. Yet none of them exist in isolation. They balance and contrast with one another, creating harmony across the land. Their rulers, too, embody these qualities in ways that show both strengths and flaws. Flame Princess burns with passion, but struggles with control. Ice King yearns for love, but is lost in madness. Princess Bubblegum builds with reason, but sometimes loses touch with compassion. Together, these archetypes create balance. None of them is perfect, but together they form the symphony of Ooo. This is why Adventure Time never feels like pure nonsense, even when it appears to be. Beneath the randomness, there is always an undercurrent, a design that gently holds everything together. That's why the strangest jokes can exist alongside the deepest lore without breaking the world's coherence. It is because Ooo is not trying to be consistent in the way our waking world is. Instead, it is consistent in the way dreams are. Its logic is emotional, symbolic, and cyclical, always allowing contradiction, but weaving it into something meaningful. And what is most striking is how Ooo seems to know what its inhabitants need, even before they do. Finn stumbles into trials that shape him. Marceline is drawn into moments that force her to face her past. Simon is offered paths toward healing. Bubblegum confronts challenges that test her sense of control. None of them are placed in these positions by coincidence alone. The land itself feels like it is arranging events, creating encounters that allow growth, reconciliation, or renewal. Ooo is not a passive backdrop. It is an active participant in the story. Perhaps this is why so many viewers feel that Ooo speaks to them personally. Its threads reflect not only its own hidden logic, but the logic of our own lives. We, too, live among ruins of the past, carrying memories that shape who we are. We, too, move through cycles of loss and renewal, of change and return. And just like Ooo, our lives are filled with strange contradictions, moments of sorrow side by side with laughter, chaos nestled within order. Adventure Time reminds us that these contradictions are not mistakes. They are the threads of the larger pattern we all share. The dreamlike nature of Ooo also teaches us something about acceptance. It shows that not everything needs to be explained or controlled. Some things simply belong. A magical door may open without reason, leading to an adventure that feels fated. A song may appear at the perfect moment, carrying meaning without needing logic. In our waking lives, we often search for clarity, for certainty, for a straight line from cause to effect. But Ooo whispers a gentler truth, that sometimes meaning is not in explanation, but in experience. The meaning is in the feeling, in the way the story lingers inside us. And so as we step back and look at Ooo from this gentle perspective, we see a world that is not random at all. We see threads connecting ruins and kingdoms, characters and archetypes, joy and sorrow, chaos and order. We see cycles breathing through its stories, carrying destruction into renewal and loss into love. We see symbols repeating across its landscapes, reminding us that nothing is ever isolated, that everything reflects something else. It is a world that holds its scars with tenderness, turning tragedy into myth and myth into comfort. It is a world that teaches through play, revealing deep truths through songs, jokes, and quiet moments of reflection. Above all, it is a world that feels alive, as though the land itself is a dreamer, guiding its people gently through the stories it wishes to tell. This is the gentle thread of Ooo, the hidden order that hums beneath its surface, guiding its chaos into harmony and weaving nonsense into meaning. Once you notice it, you cannot unsee it. It is there in the way kingdoms balance each other, in the way ruins speak of memory, in the way cycles return, and in the way characters move as if guided by unseen currents. And now that we have lingered with these threads, we can begin to follow them further. Because if Oo's hidden logic is shaped by cycles and symbols, then we can look closer at those repeating rhythms. We can trace how destruction leads into rebirth, how endings become beginnings, and how the land itself seems to breathe in steady, eternal patterns. As we rest now with the gentle threads of Ooo still fresh in our minds, let us move a little deeper into the heart of the rhythm that carries this strange land forward. The more closely you watch, the more you notice that Ooo does not move in straight lines. It turns in circles. It breathes in cycles. It falls into endings only to rise into beginnings again. The clearest of these cycles lies in the history of the world itself. Long before the bright kingdoms and playful adventures, there was devastation. The Mushroom War marked the end of one age and the uncertain dawn of another. Cities crumbled, technology withered, humanity scattered. By all ordinary measures, this should have been the final act of the earth. But Ooo did not stop there. Out of the ashes, something new grew. Magic awoke again. Creatures changed. Kingdoms rose from unlikely materials. What appeared to be an ending was only a turning of the wheel, a death that quietly made way for rebirth. This rhythm repeats across the lives of Oo's people. Consider Simon Petrikov again. He lived as a human scholar, then descended into madness as the Ice King, losing his identity to the curse of the crown. For centuries, it seemed, he was trapped in this cycle of loss and loneliness. And yet his story curved back. He found fragments of himself in the presence of Marceline, and later, in the strange events of distant seasons, he returned once more to his humanity. His cycle did not erase the suffering, but it showed that within even the darkest spirals there is always the possibility of renewal. Finn, too, embodies this pattern. We meet him first as a boy, filled with wild energy, chasing adventure for the joy of it. But as the years pass, he grows older, confronting heartbreak, loss, and the weight of responsibility. His boyhood self seems to fade, yet the cycle brings him back again and again to something like innocence. Not the innocence of naivety, but the innocence of wisdom, a return to simplicity after hardship, a rediscovery of play after sorrow. Finn's life arcs in circles, reminding us that maturity is not a straight climb upward, but a looping path of lessons learned and relearned. And what of Princess Bubblegum? She too moves in cycles, though hers are shaped by her kingdom. Again and again she rises as protector and ruler, only to find herself consumed by control, drifting into cold pragmatism. When she notices what she has become, she softens, reconnecting with compassion, and the cycle turns once more. Each time, she balances between creation and domination, love and distance, building and rebuilding. Her cycle is not about destruction in the same way as Simon's or Finn's, but about the way ideals must bend and reform in the face of reality. Even the villains of Ooo are caught in this turning wheel. The Lich rises again and again from seeming defeat. Each time he is banished, dissolved, or imprisoned, yet the cycle turns and he returns, reshaped, but still carrying his ancient hunger for death. Yet even this cycle is not endless. One day, even the Lich becomes something else, transformed into the harmless form of Sweet Pea, a rebirth that turns pure destruction into innocent life. In this way, even Oo's greatest terror becomes part of the same rhythm, the wheel that turns endlessly between endings and beginnings. The land itself echoes these patterns. Ice melts into water, which flows into rivers, which feed the forests, which grow into homes, which one day crumble back into the earth. Fires burn away the old, making room for new growth. Magic surges, fades, and then surges again. In every corner of Ooo, this rhythm continues, like the quiet beating of a heart. To notice these cycles is to see that Oo's hidden logic is not about permanence. Nothing in Ooo is meant to stay exactly the same. Everything shifts, changes, and returns in new forms. The comfort comes not from stability, but from rhythm. The assurance that after loss, there will be renewal, and after renewal, there will be change once again. This is why Adventure Time can embrace both silliness and sorrow without breaking. Because even when laughter fades into tears and joy turns into fear, the cycle promises that the story is not over. The wheel keeps turning, carrying characters and kingdoms through endless loops of transformation. And perhaps this is why Ooo feels so strangely alive. It is not static, not fixed in one state. It is breathing, flowing, circling, always renewing itself. Even its chaos is part of the rhythm, like the dissonant notes in a song that still resolve into harmony. Oo's cycles remind us that endings are never final, and beginnings are never entirely new. They are threads in the same pattern, woven again and again, with just enough variation to feel fresh, and just enough familiarity to feel like home. When we think of cycles, we might be tempted to see them as simple loops, endlessly repeating the same shapes. But in Ooo, these cycles are more like spirals. They return to familiar places, but never in quite the same way. There is always a small shift, a lesson tucked into the return, a subtle growth that makes each turning distinct from the last. Finn's encounters with destiny highlight this spiral-like quality. Again and again, he is placed before challenges that echo each other in surprising ways. He rescues people. He faces monsters. He struggles with the meaning of being a hero. But each encounter carries him further along the spiral. The Finn who helps a snail is not the same Finn who faces the Lich, and the Finn who meets his younger self in the multiverse is not the same Finn who once shouted gleefully at the thrill of adventure. The challenges circle back, but they never return him to the exact same place. They guide him forward even as they feel familiar. Marceline, too, lives within spirals of her own. Her immortality stretches her cycles out across centuries, but they are no less present. She drifts between closeness and distance, between holding on to others and pushing them away. We see her as a fierce protector, then as someone lost in loneliness, then again as a companion, rediscovering love and friendship. Each time she circles through these phases, she is changed. She carries with her the memories of past cycles, shaping her into someone wiser, softer, yet still fiercely independent. Her spiral is one of learning to balance solitude with connection, strength with vulnerability. What is fascinating about Ooo is how these individual spirals overlap, weaving into one another. Marceline's cycles touch Simon, their lives entangled across centuries. Finn's spiral crosses bubblegums, influencing the way both grow and learn. Even the villain's spirals brush against the heroes, forcing changes neither could face alone. The cycles are not separate wheels turning in isolation. They are interlocked gears pushing one another forward in unexpected ways. And then, above all these smaller spirals, there are the great cosmic cycles. The universe of Adventure Time often reminds us that existence itself is not fixed. Realities are born, split apart, collapse, and renew. The elements take turns in dominance: ice, fire, slime, candy, rising and falling in endless succession. The cosmic owl drifts through dreams, hinting at the inevitability of fate's loops. Even Prismo, lounging in his timeless chamber, knows that reality moves in patterns too vast for mortals to fully see. These cycles remind us that these spirals of the characters are but echoes of something larger, something woven into the fabric of Ooo itself. When we pause and reflect on these repeating patterns, there is something soothing about them. They suggest that even when things fall apart, when kingdoms burn or friendships fracture, there is always the possibility of return. It may not be the same as it was before. Sometimes it is gentler, sometimes stranger, sometimes scarred, but it carries the shape of continuity, a reminder that nothing is ever entirely lost. The imagery of rebirth appears again and again to reinforce this. Consider the tree that becomes Finn and Jake's home. Trees themselves embody cycles, growing through seasons, shedding leaves, waiting through winter, then blooming anew. The treehouse is not only a shelter but a symbol, quietly echoing the pattern of life in Ooo. It witnesses Finn's boyhood, his growing pains, his joys and sorrows. Even when the house changes, when it is broken or altered, its roots remain. It too returns, transformed but still holding memory of what it once was. Or think of the many versions of existence glimpsed through alternate universes. Some are brighter, some darker, some almost unrecognizable. And yet in nearly all of them, certain shapes recur. Finn's bravery, Jake's loyalty, Bubblegum's ambition, the shadow of the Lich. It is as if the cycle of Ooo is not confined to one timeline, but ripples across many, imprinting its rhythm wherever reality takes form. This is not repetition for its own sake, but the persistence of certain truths reshaped again and again as the wheel of reality keeps turning. These cycles may feel comforting, but they also raise deeper questions. If everything moves in spirals, how much freedom do the characters truly have? Are they choosing their paths, or are they simply walking along curves already laid out before them? Finn grows, Marceline changes, Simon transforms, yet each seems to walk within the pattern of loss and renewal. Perhaps their choices matter not because they break the cycles, but because they shape how those cycles are experienced. The spiral keeps turning, but the colors painted along its curves are uniquely their own. And so when we watch Ooo, we are not only witnessing a story unfold, but also witnessing a pattern, a rhythm, a cosmic breath. Endings become beginnings. Despair turns into hope. Destruction gives way to growth. Over and over, like waves upon a shore, each one new and yet familiar, carrying forward the ancient song of Ooo. As we linger on this spiral of endings and beginnings, it becomes clear that Ooo does not merely tell us a story about characters. It whispers a story about time itself, about the way events echo one another, the way fate ripples outward, and the way no ending is ever as final as it first appears. The cosmic owl is one of the most mysterious keepers of this rhythm. Each time he appears in a dream, it signals an inevitable turning point. His presence does not always make sense in the moment, but as time unfurls, the dream's meaning reveals itself. The owl is not cruel or kind, not a judge nor a guide, but a reminder of inevitability. His wings beat with the rhythm of cycles, carrying whispers from the hidden logic of Ooo. When he flies through a dream, we are reminded that the story is already moving along its spiral path, even if we do not yet see where it leads. For Finn, his encounters with the cosmic owl show him that life's cycles cannot be avoided, only faced. The dream where he sees his own arm torn away seems grim, but it is not a punishment. It is part of the spiral of change, his childhood giving way to adolescence, his innocence reshaped by loss. And though the dream unsettles him, its prophecy is fulfilled not as a tragic end, but as a gateway into growth. His arm's loss becomes part of his journey, a new branch of the spiral leading him toward wisdom. Cycles can feel like prisons when we resist them, yet in Ooo, they often bring hidden gifts. Consider the repeated rises of the Lich. Each return feels terrifying, yet each time, the world is forced to grow in response. Heroes rise to face him. Bonds strengthen under the weight of shared danger. And in the end, even his cycle bends toward transformation, leading to the birth of Sweet Pea. The Lich's endless hunger for annihilation folds back on itself, reborn as innocence. The darkest spiral finds renewal in the gentlest of forms. But cycles in Ooo are not always so large or so cosmic. They dwell in the quieter corners, too, in the friendships that ebb and flow, in the way Jake drifts between responsibility and carefree play, or in how Bubblegum alternates between her warm humanity and her colder, calculating side. These are not failures, but natural rhythms, breaths of the soul. Just as the tide pulls in and then recedes, the heart pulls close and then drifts away, only to return again. Marceline and Bubblegum embody this beautifully. Their relationship moves in circles: estrangement, tension, reconciliation, and renewed closeness. For years, their bond seems lost, tangled in old hurt and unspoken words, yet the spiral turns, bringing them together again. Not as they once were, but as something stronger, more open. Their love does not erase the cycles of conflict. It embraces them, folds them into a greater rhythm of connection. Theirs is a pattern of drifting apart and returning, but with each turn, the bond deepens, like layers of sediment building into stone. And then, there is the question of choice within these cycles. Does the spiral predetermine all outcomes, or do the characters shape their own paths? Adventure Time suggests that both may be true. The pattern is there, the rise and fall, the loss and renewal. But within that pattern lies infinite variation. Finn may be destined to face trials, but how he faces them, how he responds, and how he chooses to love are all his own. The spiral is the canvas. The choices are the brushstrokes. This is why Oo's cycles feel alive rather than mechanical. They are not rigid loops, but living rhythms, filled with personality and possibility. They are as unpredictable as music, where a refrain returns but is played in a new key, with a new tempo, carrying a new mood. The song is the same, yet it is never exactly the same. Perhaps this is why viewers often feel a quiet sense of comfort, even in Oo's darkest turns, because beneath the sorrow or the chaos we sense the rhythm continuing. A kingdom may crumble, but something will grow from its ruins. A friendship may fracture, but the spiral turns, and someday reconciliation may bloom. Even when characters face despair, we feel that this despair is not the final word. The cycle carries them onward, gently but persistently, into whatever comes next. This rhythm is not unique to Ooo. It mirrors the cycles of our own world, seasons shifting, nights giving way to days, endings leading to beginnings we cannot yet imagine. And perhaps that is why the world of Adventure Time resonates so deeply. Its cycles remind us of something we already know, something we live each day. That nothing remains the same forever, but nothing is ever entirely lost either. Even time itself is portrayed as a cycle in Ooo. The time room where Prismo dwells is a place outside ordinary flow, where realities are born and erased in endless turns. Prismo is both participant and observer, lounging casually as universes come and go. His calm demeanor reflects the inevitability of cycles. He knows that endings and beginnings are not tragic, but natural. Even his own existence, fragile and bound to the wish of a mortal, reminds us that cycles extend to everything, even to those who appear timeless. And in the grandest scale, the pattern of Ooo may suggest that the entire universe is caught in cycles of death and rebirth. The Great Mushroom War ended one world, but gave rise to another. perhaps long before, there were other wars, other collapses, other spirals of destruction and renewal. And perhaps long after, there will be more. The logic of Ooo whispers that the story never truly ends. It only turns, carrying the rhythm forward into forms we have yet to imagine. If we follow these spirals of change even further, they begin to reveal something almost musical about the very logic of Ooo. The world is not stitched together by rules of permanence or certainty. Instead, it hums with rhythm, an endless layering of repeating patterns, each returning in slightly different tones, like refrains in a song. Some spirals are personal, lived out in the hearts of Finn or Marceline. Others are vast, stretching across centuries, carried by kingdoms, elements, and cosmic forces. But all of them contribute to the same quiet melody, the same pattern of cycles. The elementals are among the clearest examples of this. Each embodies a primal force of existence, candy, slime, fire, ice, and each rises and falls in influence as the ages turn. Their conflict and balance echo natural cycles, heat giving way to cold, structure dissolving into fluidity, sweetness overwhelming and then receding. At times, one element dominates, reshaping the world in its image, only to be undone by the rise of another. This tug-of-war is not random. It is the rhythm of balance reasserting itself, the cycle spinning endlessly. Princess Bubblegum as the candy elemental shows us creation and nurture, but also the danger of stasis. Left unchecked, her influence spreads like sweetness overtaking every flavor, consuming diversity in the name of harmony. Flame Princess, as the fire elemental, burns with passion and destruction, cleansing but also consuming. Slime Princess drifts into chaos, spreading dissolution, while Ice Princess, or Ice King, by the strange twist of Simon's fate, embodies stillness, memory, and the frozen weight of time. Each is both blessing and curse. Each is necessary yet dangerous when isolated, and so they rise and fall in cycles, ensuring no single force holds dominion forever. This is Oo's logic at its most elemental, that every force, no matter how absolute it seems, must one day yield to its opposite. Fire cools, ice melts, candy rots, slime solidifies. Nothing is fixed. Everything is bound to the wheel. Even dreams in Ooo remind us of this rhythm. When Finn drifts into slumber, he sometimes touches the larger pattern, glimpsing events yet to come. His dreams feel surreal, yet their logic is cyclical. They carry symbols that loop back into waking life, sometimes years later, echoing the spiral of destiny itself. Dreams are like the hidden chambers of the cycle, places where the mind rehearses endings and beginnings, preparing the heart for what is already moving toward it. The cosmic owl's visits remind us that dreams are not private. They are part of the spiral, part of the cosmic weave. His wings stretch across the dreamscape, carrying inevitability into the minds of mortals. His presence tells us that fate itself is cyclical. Events foretold not because they are carved in stone, but because the spiral has already begun to turn. And if we listen closely, there is a strange comfort in this. For though the cycles carry sorrow as well as joy, despair as well as hope, they assure us that nothing ends in silence. Every fall prepares for a rise, every collapse plants seeds for renewal. Even the darkest patterns, like the lich's endless hunger, are not immune to transformation. Eventually, the spiral bends, reshaping horror into something unexpected, as when the lich's destruction gave birth to Sweet Pea's innocence. This is perhaps the hidden heartbeat of Ooo, that the world thrives not because it avoids endings, but because it embraces them as part of an eternal rhythm. Every kingdom will crumble, every character will change, every age will pass into another. But none of these endings erase what came before. Instead, they fold into the spiral, carried forward as memory, as lesson, as the foundation for what comes next. It is why the show itself often feels like a cycle. Episodes that begin with lighthearted quests loop back into profound lessons. Stories that end in sorrow eventually ripple into new adventures. Even the series as a whole leaves us with both closure and openness, as though we've reached the end of one spiral while already stepping into the curve of another. The pattern of cycles is not only Oo's logic, it is Oo's comfort. It is the assurance that even in a world scarred by apocalypse, even in a universe haunted by ancient forces, the story is never truly finished. Life reshapes itself, love finds new expressions, and hope quietly grows from the ruins. So when we gaze across Ooo, at its crumbling ruins, its vibrant kingdoms, its quiet forests, and its endless skies, we are not looking at a world frozen in one shape. We are looking at a great spiral, turning patiently, endlessly, weaving endings into beginnings and beginnings into endings. And perhaps, as we drift here in the quiet of night, we might feel the rhythm of that same spiral in our own lives, in the way we face loss and find renewal, in the way each day closes with dusk, only to open again with dawn, in the way our own hearts, like those of Finn, Marceline, Bubblegum, and even Simon, move through cycles of sorrow and joy, distance and closeness, loss and love. For Ooo, in all its strangeness and wonder, is not so different from us. Its logic is hidden, yet familiar. It whispers of cycles, because cycles are the essence of life itself. And if we learn to rest within them, to trust their rhythm, we may find the same comfort that Ooo offers, knowing that every ending carries within it the seed of a new beginning. If cycles reveal the rhythm of Ooo, then the land itself holds the symbols that guide us through those rhythms. Every corner of this strange world seems to carry a meaning, as though the hills and rivers, the ruins and castles, are more than mere backdrops. They are symbols, quiet signposts left for us to read. And if we pause long enough to notice them, they tell us stories about Oo's hidden logic. The most immediate of these symbols lies in Oo's very landscape. Its fields and forests, its deserts and seas do not spread randomly. They carry with them echoes of what came before. Vast plains stretch where once there may have been city streets. Oceans lap against crumbled skyscrapers, their forms softened by centuries of waves. Even the most playful regions, like the Candy Kingdom or the Fire Kingdom, stand atop layers of history. Every bright, whimsical land is also a mask, covering scars left by the world that fell before the Mushroom War. The ruins scattered across Ooo remind us of this hidden depth. When Finn and Jake stumble upon the skeletal remains of highways, the hollow shells of malls, or the strange husks of machines, we are reminded that this is not only a magical fantasy world, it is Earth, our Earth, transformed. These ruins stand like fossils, symbolic reminders that every present moment is built upon the bones of the past. They are quiet, haunting symbols of cycles, telling us that nothing truly disappears but lingers in the landscape as memory. And then there are the trees, which appear again and again as central symbols. The great tree house that Finn and Jake call home is more than a dwelling. It is a symbol of life rooted in ruins, grown from the earth long after devastation, yet containing remnants of the old world within its branches. It bridges the gap between death and renewal. When we look at it, we are reminded that the world can heal, that new growth can spring from broken soil. Other trees carry meaning as well. The apple trees that appear in small moments are not merely sources of food. They echo the ancient symbol of knowledge, choice, and temptation. To take fruit from a tree has always carried mythic weight, and in Ooo, these quiet moments remind us that even in a a post-apocalyptic landscape, the old stories still breathe through the soil. Water, too, is a powerful symbol across Ooo. Rivers wind gently through valleys, carrying with them the sense of time flowing forward, endlessly shaping the land. Lakes and oceans hold reflections, sometimes literal, sometimes metaphorical, suggesting that beneath the surface lies another truth. Think of the ocean that Finn fears so deeply. It is not only water to him, it is a symbol of memory, of trauma, of the unknown past that frightens him. His journey into the ocean is not only about facing waves, but about facing himself. In this way, Oo's waters act as mirrors, reflecting what lies hidden in the hearts of those who approach them. The dungeons and underground caverns scattered across the land hold a different symbolism. They are places of descent, journeys inward, echoing the old mythic idea of entering the underworld. Each time Finn and Jake plunge beneath the surface, they symbolically descend into the subconscious of Ooo, exploring what lies beneath the bright surface. Monsters, treasures, and forgotten artifacts emerge from these depths, as though the land itself is whispering secrets from its hidden layers. And then, towering over many parts of Ooo, are the mountains. Sharp, jagged, snow-covered, or lush with greenery, they remind us of challenge, of striving upwards. Mountains in Ooo often mark the boundaries between realms, places where one kingdom ends and another begins. To cross them is to undergo transformation, to leave one state of being behind and step into another. They are symbols of thresholds, gates carved by nature itself. Even Oo's skies seem filled with symbols. The shifting clouds, the dancing auroras, the cosmic visions that sometimes spill across the heavens. These are reminders that the sky itself is a canvas for the greater forces at play. When the cosmic owl soars above, when comets streak across the stars, when the heavens themselves shift color and shape, the sky becomes a symbol of fate, of mystery, of the vastness that holds Ooo in its embrace. What makes these symbols so enchanting is that they are never presented with fanfare. Adventure Time does not point to a mountain and declare it a metaphor. It simply places the mountain there, quiet and still, and trusts us to feel its weight. The same is true of ruins, trees, waters, skies. They are symbols hidden in plain sight, woven into the landscape, waiting for us to notice their quiet voice. And when we do notice them, they reveal that Ooo is not a random world of whimsy. It is a carefully woven tapestry of symbols, each one reminding us that beneath the laughter, beneath the songs and the silliness, there is a deeper logic at work. A logic that connects the land to the lives of its people, and the present moment to the distant echoes of the past. If the forests and rivers speak of cycles and renewal, then the castles and kingdoms scattered across Ooo carry another layer of symbolism. Each one is not only a home for its ruler, but a living symbol of their essence. The Candy Kingdom, with its bright, playful towers of frosting and gumdrops, feels sweet and welcoming on the surface. But its soft colors conceal a deeper truth. It is fragile, easily consumed, and constantly in need of rebuilding. Its walls may look cheerful, but they also speak of impermanence, a reminder that sweetness can be as fleeting as it is joyful. The Fire Kingdom burns with a different symbolism. Its molten rivers and jagged volcanic cliffs mirror the nature of fire itself: passion, power, destruction, and rebirth. Within its walls, everything is marked by intensity. Heat that can nurture or consume, flames that can warm or destroy. To dwell in the Fire Kingdom is to live in the constant reminder of fire's dual nature, just as Flame Princess herself struggles between the roles of destroyer and creator. The land becomes a mirror of its ruler's heart, a symbol of conflict and transformation. The Ice Kingdom, stretching glittering blue across the horizon, reflects the opposite: stillness, isolation, and memory frozen in time. Its spires and glaciers rise like monuments to loneliness, shimmering yet cold. It symbolizes both beauty and sorrow, mirroring Simon's life as the Ice King. Every frozen cavern seems to echo his own frozen heart, locked in a cycle of longing and madness. The kingdom is not only his home, but his soul cast across the land. Even smaller domains, like the Slime Kingdom, speak with symbolic voices. The endless goo and shifting shapes remind us of impermanence, of the way identity itself can slip and reform. The Slime Kingdom is playful, but it also embodies dissolution, the gentle chaos that erodes rigid forms. To walk through it is to remember that nothing stays firm forever, that the world is always melting, shifting, reshaping. Beyond the kingdoms, there are darker realms with equally potent symbolism. The Nightosphere, ruled by Hunson Abadir, stands as a symbolic underworld. It is filled with chaos, with hungry demons and endless torment. Yet beneath its horrors lies meaning. To descend into the Nightosphere is to face shadow, to confront the parts of the self that are wild, destructive, and unrestrained. For Marceline, it represents not only her father's domain, but the part of herself tied to darkness and inheritance. For others, it becomes a place of trial where confronting the underworld mirrors confronting one's own fears. The grasslands, where Finn and Jake's adventures often begin, hold their own quiet symbolism. Open and rolling, dotted with ruins and simple homes, they represent a place of beginnings. The grasslands are unassuming, yet they serve as the canvas on which many journeys are painted. They are symbolic of youth itself, wide open, filled with possibility, but not yet shaped by the heavier layers of destiny. To start in the grasslands is to stand at the threshold of adventure before being pulled into the deeper mysteries of Ooo. Scattered throughout these landscapes are portals and strange doorways, sometimes obvious, sometimes hidden in plain sight. They remind us of thresholds, of the way Ooo constantly opens into new dimensions and possibilities. A portal might lead to the Nightosphere, to Prismo's time room, to another timeline, or to an entirely new reality. Each one is a symbol of transition, of the moment when the ordinary opens into the extraordinary. They suggest that Ooo itself is not sealed but porous, a land always ready to unfold into wider mysteries. Even the ruins of ancient technology stand as symbols. An abandoned computer tower, a crumbling satellite dish, a broken robot rusting in the soil. All these images remind us of the world that came before. They are ghosts of human ambition, reminders of both creation and destruction. To stumble upon one is to be reminded that the present is never truly free from the past. These remnants whisper of forgotten ages, urging us to reflect on how cycles of creation and collapse leave their marks on the land. What makes Oo's symbols so powerful is the way they blend the whimsical with the profound. A candy tower may look silly, yet it speaks of fragility. A mountain may be drawn in simple lines, yet it carries the weight of trial and transformation. Adventure Time never forces us to see these meanings, but they settle into the background of our imagination, shaping how we feel about each place. The symbols are subtle, but their quiet power makes Oo's world feel alive, layered, and full of hidden truths. One of the most haunting symbolic presences across Ooo is the ruins left behind from the Mushroom War, scattered in meadows and deserts, half buried in forests, or rising quietly in the distance. These remnants remind us of a world that once thrived with technology and human civilization. A broken highway with weeds pushing through the cracks becomes more than stone and steel. It symbolizes the collapse of a world built on progress and how nature gently, patiently, reclaims what once belonged to it. Every ruin carries a sense of memory, as if the stones themselves remember. A fallen skyscraper is no longer just a collapsed structure. It becomes a monument to ambition and fragility, a silent storyteller of a time long gone. Even Finn and Jake, who often treat ruins as playgrounds for adventure, remind us that exploring them is like wandering through the echoes of humanity's past. Each ruin symbolizes not only loss, but also continuity, the way stories and consequences linger long after their origin has been forgotten. The stars above Ooo are another powerful symbol, often tied to prophecy and destiny. The cosmic owl, for instance, appears in dreams as a messenger, his presence suggesting that even in sleep, the stars weave patterns that guide the future. In adventure time, stars are not just decorations in the sky, but symbols of threads that stretch beyond Oo's surface, binding together dimensions and timelines. When Finn looks upward, we feel the same pull, the reminder that Ooo is only a fragment of something much larger, stitched into a cosmic quilt. Comets, too, carry immense symbolic weight. Each comet that streaks across the sky brings change, as if the universe itself is sending omens. The arrival of a comet often coincides with transformation, destruction, or rebirth. Finn himself, tied to the Catalyst comet, embodies this symbolism directly, his very existence marked by cosmic cycles. The comet is not just an object in the sky, but a symbol of inevitability, of the way forces greater than individuals shape the course of Oo's history. The ground beneath Ooo also speaks in symbols. Caverns and dungeons filled with monsters and treasures represent descent into the unknown, into the subconscious. They are the physical expression of trials, places where heroes must confront danger, but also themselves. Every dungeon is more than a challenge. It is a mirror of growth, a symbolic journey downward before returning upward changed. Even the trees of Ooo carry meaning, especially the great treehouse where Finn and Jake live. It is not merely a home, but a symbol of shelter, companionship, and life rooted deeply in the earth while reaching upward to the sky. In its branches, the two find safety, but also possibility. The treehouse is living architecture, an embodiment of harmony between nature and dwelling. In contrast, Marceline's house, an ancient, crumbling structure, speak of solitude, history, and the way the past lingers in walls that refuse to fall. Each home in Ooo symbolizes not just a dwelling place, but the inner life of its inhabitants. Waterways across the land, too, form quiet, symbolic threads. Rivers wind like the flow of time, moving steadily toward an unseen ocean. Lakes shimmer with reflection, hinting at deeper truths below the surface. When characters cross water, it often marks transition, stepping into something new, leaving behind what was familiar. The symbolism here is gentle, but persistent, guiding us to feel that Oo's geography is more than background scenery. It is a language of movement and meaning. The sky itself often shifts into symbolic roles. A clear sky, wide and endless, gives a sense of freedom and hope, while storm clouds gather tension, foreshadowing trials. Sunsets, with their soft oranges and pinks, signal not only the close of day, but the passage of time, the slow fading of one chapter before another begins. In adventure time, even the simple act of watching a sunset becomes layered with emotion, as if the sky is gently reminding us of impermanence and renewal. Another repeating symbol in Ooo is the crown. Not only Ice King's magical crown, but crowns in general appear as signs of authority, a burden of transformation. The Ice King's crown is perhaps the clearest example. a simple object of gold and jewels that carries the power to alter destiny entirely. But beyond its literal magic, the crown symbolizes the weight of rulership and the cost of power. Crowns in Ooo rarely signify only glory. They often remind us of the price attached to holding them. Then there are the more subtle patterns, spirals drawn on stones, eyes hidden in the designs of ruins, portals etched with circles. These motifs repeat like whispers across the landscape, as though the land itself is trying to tell a story too large for words. Spirals often symbolize cycles, endless turning and returning. Eyes represent watchfulness, the presence of hidden forces observing the flow of events. Circles suggest unity, eternity, and the web of connection that binds Ooo to other realms. These recurring patterns remind us that Ooo is not random, but shaped by hidden logic woven through both its land and sky. All of these symbols, ruins, stars, comets, crowns, spirals, work together to create a dreamlike resonance. Ooo becomes more than a setting. It becomes a symbolic landscape, a reflection of the characters' inner lives, of cycles both cosmic and personal, of the mysterious forces that guide destiny. When we take the time to look, to really listen, the land whispers of meaning that stretches far beyond any single story. When we step back and look at Ooo as a whole, it begins to feel like a grand mosaic, every piece of its land and sky carrying its own symbolic note, and together forming a symphony of meaning. It is not just a post-apocalyptic world with quirky kingdoms and scattered ruins. It is a dreamlike tapestry, where each hill, tree, and river whispers something larger than itself. And the more closely we listen, the more we see how deeply the world is structured, as though it were carefully painted by unseen hands. Take, for example, the repeating motif of eyes. Hidden in ruins, carved into walls, or even appearing as living beings, they give the sense that Ooo is always under observation. Sometimes these eyes are literal, giant creatures or guardians that peer from the shadows. Other times they are symbolic, etched into artifacts or repeated in strange patterns. They remind us of a presence beyond the surface, of the fact that in adventure time, nothing unfolds without being witnessed by forces greater than the characters themselves. For the dreamer lying in bed, it can feel like drifting into a story where you too are watched, gently reminded that all stories exist under the gaze of something beyond them. Another motif, the spiral, winds its way through Ooo in quiet yet insistent ways. From the curling arms of snails to the whirls in dungeon walls, spirals suggest cycles that never truly end. They embody movement without conclusion, journeys that bend back toward their beginning. This symbolism mirrors the way Adventure Time itself often tells stories that circle, return, or echo across time. Finn's life, the comet cycles, the rebirth of magical forces, all seem tied to this spiral motion. In a land built after catastrophe, the spiral is a symbol of survival, of stories continuing to turn even after the world has broken apart. Portals, doors, and thresholds also appear again and again, reinforcing the sense that Ooo is never closed, but open to transformation. A door in a tree may lead to treasure, or to another world entirely. A portal may whisk a hero into the nightosphere or Prismo's time room. These images symbolize not only literal travel, but the idea of crossing from one state of being to another. Growth, transformation, initiation. Every doorway is a gentle reminder that the world is layered, that beyond what we see there is always another passage waiting to open. Even the landscapes themselves carry symbolic dualities. Mountains rise as symbols of trial, urging heroes to climb and overcome. Deserts sprawl as symbols of emptiness, reflecting the feeling of wandering without guidance. Swamps and marshes symbolize stagnation, yet also fertility hidden in their murky waters. Forests speak of mystery and growth, while oceans embody both freedom and danger. Each landscape holds meaning that resonates with the adventures set within them, shaping the journeys of characters in ways that feel both natural and symbolic. The ruins of technology, the castles of candy or fire, the frozen spires of ice, each is distinct, yet when considered together, they begin to form a kind of symbolic alphabet. Oo's design feels deliberate, as though every location contributes a letter to the hidden language of its world. Read alone, each symbol tells a small story. Read together, they hint at a great underlying pattern, one that ties together destruction, renewal, destiny, and choice. It is as though the land itself has been crafted to reflect the very themes that shape Adventure Time: impermanence, transformation, cycles, and connection. Perhaps the most beautiful realization is that these symbols are not forced upon us. Adventure Time never tells us outright that a spiral means eternity, or that a crown symbolizes the cost of power. Instead, the world simply breathes with these images, letting us notice them in quiet moments if we are willing. For the sleepy listener, this becomes part of the magic. As you drift through the story, you begin to sense meanings that are not spoken but felt. The symbols nestle into your imagination, weaving a subtle dream even as you watch. And in this way, Ooo becomes more than a fictional land. It becomes a mirror. The ruins remind us of our own histories, of what is lost and what endures. The stars remind us of vastness, of destinies beyond our understanding. The forests, the oceans, the skies, all speak in whispers that echo truths we know deep inside but rarely put into words. Oo's landscape, with all its strange kingdoms and whimsical details, becomes a symbolic map of human experience. Joy and fragility, love and loss, cycles of destruction and renewal, hope and inevitability. As we gather these threads together, the symbols of Ooo reveal themselves as more than decoration. They are a quiet language, spoken through imagery, hinting at the hidden logic of the land. They tell us that nothing is random, that even in a world born from chaos, meaning flows beneath the surface. And for us, lying in bed, listening gently, these patterns remind us of the symbols in our own lives, the little things that repeat, the quiet motifs that shape our stories, often unnoticed until we pause to reflect. In Ooo, every hill and ruin, every comet and crown becomes part of a soft symbolic chorus. And when we let ourselves sink into it, we begin to feel what the show itself seems to whisper, that the world is full of meaning if we are patient enough to see it, and that even in dreams, symbols guide us through the landscapes of imagination. If the landscapes of Ooo whisper through symbols carved into the earth and sky, then its characters breathe those symbols into life. Each of them feels larger than themselves, shaped not only by their personal stories, but also by the timeless archetypes they seem to embody. Archetypes are those recurring patterns of human imagination that appear in myths, in dreams, in the stories people have told for centuries. They are the wise mentors, the wandering heroes, the tricksters, and the guardians of thresholds. And in Adventure Time, we find these figures walking in candy-colored kingdoms and icy spires, their roles both playful and profound. Finn, for instance, shines most clearly as the archetypal hero. His journey begins in the innocence of the grasslands, in the safety of childhood, where every adventure feels new and every danger can be overcome with courage and heart. Yet as his story unfolds, he takes on the deeper qualities of the hero archetype, the one who must leave comfort, face trials, and be transformed by the journey. He fights monsters, yes, but he also confronts loneliness, heartbreak, and questions of identity. In this way, Finn is not only a boy with a sword, but a mirror of the timeless hero's path, the call to adventure, the descent into trials, the return with new wisdom. His very growth is symbolic, reminding us of the universal journey from innocence to experience, from simplicity to complexity. Jake, by his side, often fills the role of the trickster archetype. He is playful, shape-shifting, unpredictable, often bringing chaos where order is expected. But like tricksters of myth, Jake's chaos has meaning. His laziness forces Finn to step forward. His jokes lighten heavy moments, and his strange wisdom often guides Finn more than direct instruction could. Tricksters often blur the lines between folly and truth, between laughter and wisdom. And so Jake, in his stretchy, carefree way, becomes more than comic relief. He is a gentle reminder that humor and flexibility are essential parts of surviving the trials of life. He embodies the archetype of the trickster who, through play, teaches resilience. Princess Bubblegum represents yet another archetypal force, the ruler and the creator. She is the architect of her kingdom, shaping it with both love and calculation. As ruler, she embodies authority, responsibility, and the burden of leadership. Yet her archetype goes deeper, for she is not only queen, but also scientist, creator, almost a godlike figure within her domain. The Candy Kingdom itself is her expression, a kingdom literally formed of her creations. In mythology, rulers often straddle the line between protector and tyrant, between benevolence and control. Princess Bubblegum reflects this duality, loving and protective, yet sometimes manipulative and calculating. Her archetype reminds us of the tension that exists in all authority figures, the balance between care and control, between creation and domination. The Ice King, Simon Petrikov, embodies perhaps one of the most haunting archetypes of all, the fallen king, or the tragic madman. His crown, both literal and symbolic, ties him to power, yet the cost is his identity, his sanity, his ability to love freely. The archetype of the fallen king appears in countless myths, the ruler who has lost himself, who wanders in madness yet still carries fragments of the wisdom and pain of his past. In Simon, this archetype finds heartbreaking form. He is both comic and tragic, both absurd in his obsessions and deeply sorrowful in his loneliness. Through him, Adventure Time gives us a reminder that kingship, power, and knowledge are often accompanied by heavy burdens, and that madness itself can be the shadow side of wisdom. Then there is Marceline, who walks as the archetype of the wanderer and the shadow. As a vampire and daughter of the Nightosphere's ruler, she carries the darkness of her lineage. Yet as a musician, a friend, and a seeker of connection, she embodies longing, freedom, and the search for identity. Archetypes of the shadow remind us of what is hidden, what is feared, yet also what is deeply necessary to confront. Marceline's songs, her memories, her struggles with her father, all reflect this role. She is not evil, but she dwells in spaces where fear and love intertwine. Through her, the show embodies the archetype of the shadow, the reminder that darkness is not to be destroyed, but to be acknowledged, understood, and embraced. These characters do not merely act out roles. They become living archetypes, each carrying timeless patterns into the vibrant world of Ooo. When we look at them this way, every episode feels like a page of a mythic dream, every character arc a reflection of stories that humanity has told for generations. And yet, Adventure Time renders these archetypes in gentle, playful colors, reminding us that myth need not be heavy. It can be sweet, funny, and strange, while still carrying depths of meaning. Flame. Princess, for example, embodies the archetype of fire not only in her abilities, but in her very soul. Fire across mythologies is often a double-edged force, capable of destruction but also of warmth, transformation, and rebirth. Flame Princess carries this duality within her. When she burns too brightly, she destroys. When she learns control, her fire becomes protective, even healing in its way. She symbolizes the archetype of the volatile heart, the one who must balance passion with restraint, anger with love. Many myths tell of figures tied to flame, guardians of fire who bring both danger and renewal. And Flame Princess continues this lineage in a form that feels personal, intimate, and deeply human. Her relationship with Finn reflects this balance too. Love that warms, but which can also burn when mishandled. Through her, the show reminds us of the archetype of transformation, the truth that inner fire must be tended, not denied. BMO, on the other hand, is a very different archetype. This little console may seem like comic relief, playful and childlike, but beneath the silliness lies the archetype of innocence and imagination. In myths, this figure often appears as the child, pure, whimsical, unburdened by the weight of the world. Yet in BMO's case, innocence does not mean ignorance. BMO reflects the dreamer, the part of the psyche that invents stories, plays games, and reminds others of the joy in simple existence. Their childlike imagination often speaks truths that others overlook, making BMO a bridge between play and wisdom. In many ways, BMO embodies the archetype of the eternal child, the reminder that imagination is not something to be outgrown, but a force that sustains hope and wonder. Then there is the Lich, who stands in stark contrast as the embodiment of death and annihilation. His archetype is ancient, echoing the figures of countless mythologies: the destroyer, the bringer of entropy, the shadow of existence itself. He is not complex in the way other characters are, because his very essence is simplicity, the void, the hunger to end all things. Yet precisely because of this, the Lich becomes the purest expression of the archetype of death, the reminder that everything in creation carries its opposite. In encountering him, Finn and others confront not just the villain, but the inevitability of endings, the dark mirror of life itself. His presence makes the vitality of Ooo stand out more brightly, because his archetype reminds us that destruction is always near, always waiting, and that creation holds meaning only because it resists the void. Prismo brings yet another archetypal figure into Oo's dreamlike tapestry. He is the wish granter, the cosmic guide, the one who exists outside ordinary time. In mythic traditions, such figures are known as threshold guardians or dream givers, those who stand between realms, offering boons to those who seek them. Prismo embodies this role with warmth and humor, lounging in his time room, casually bending reality with his words. Yet even in his playfulness, his archetype is profound. He reminds us of the dream world itself, where imagination creates reality and where choices shape destinies. By granting wishes, he reflects humanity's timeless yearning to shape fate, to reach beyond limits. But he also reminds us of the dangers of desire, for every wish carries consequence. In Prismo, the archetype of the cosmic guide is softened, made gentle, but no less significant. Tree Trunks, too, surprising as it may seem, fits into this world of archetypes. She embodies the archetype of the nurturer, the maternal figure whose love and sweetness overflow into everything she does. Her small stature and soft voice mask surprising resilience and even strangeness, yet her archetype is clear. She represents care, gentleness, and the way nurturing love often hides strength. Mythic traditions often place such figures as the heart of the story, not the ones who slay monsters, but the ones who remind us of why life is worth protecting in the first place. Tree trunks, pies, and kindness may seem simple, but they echo the archetype of the eternal caregiver, the gentle, grounding presence, without which the chaos of Ooo would feel far less human. In this way, every character in Adventure Time, whether grand or small, cosmic or humble, seems to align with an archetypal role. The land itself is alive with symbols, but the people within it embody those symbols, giving them personality, emotion, and story. Together they form not just a cast of characters, but a living pantheon, a dreamlike gathering of archetypes walking hand in hand with whimsy and depth. Hunson Abadir, Marceline's father and ruler of the Nightosphere, is one of the clearest expressions of an archetype known across mythologies, the underworld lord. From Hades in Greek myth to Hel in Norse stories, many traditions speak of a figure who reigns over shadowed realms, holding dominion over spirits, demons, or the forces of darkness. Hunson embodies this role in a form that is both terrifying and strangely comical. He is all hunger and appetite, a force of domination. Yet he is also a father who struggles, in his own skewed way, to connect with his daughter. This duality enriches his archetype, reminding us that even the ruler of the underworld is bound by ties of family and emotion. Archetypally, he is not just the god of the dead. He is also the shadowed father, the one whose presence forces the child to face what they have inherited and decide whether to embrace or resist it. Death, who appears as a skeletal figure with a calm, almost bureaucratic demeanor, represents the archetype in its purest, most distilled form. Unlike the Lich, who embodies destruction and annihilation, Death as a character embodies inevitability and finality. He is not malicious. He simply exists, patient and unchanging, the reminder that all journeys must come to an end. His presence in Ooo reflects the archetype of the Quiet Reaper, the one who reminds heroes and dreamers alike that even in a world of endless whimsy and color, the law of impermanence still applies. Adventure Time softens this archetype, presenting death as more matter-of-fact than frightening. But that calmness only reinforces his role as a steady truth. In him, the archetype of the great ending becomes approachable, almost familiar, without losing its power. Peppermint Butler might seem like a side character, a polite servant in the Candy Kingdom, but he carries within him the archetype of the hidden sorcerer. In myths and folk tales, there is often a figure who appears unassuming, but who secretly holds vast, forbidden knowledge. Peppermint Butler embodies this archetype with unsettling clarity. Beneath his cheerful exterior lies a deep connection to shadow, necromancy, and dark rituals. His archetype is the keeper of forbidden wisdom, the reminder that appearances deceive, and that beneath the surface of even the sweetest things can lie shadow and power. His duality makes him one of the most symbolic characters in Ooo, embodying the archetype of the trickster magician, half servant, half dark sage. The cosmic owl represents yet another ancient archetype, that of the dream messenger. Across cultures, owls are symbols of mystery, wisdom, and hidden knowledge. The cosmic owl extends this role into the realm of destiny itself, appearing in dreams to signify fated moments. He embodies the archetype of the prophet who speaks not with words but with presence, whose very appearance signals the unfolding of destiny. When he drifts through Finn's dream, or when he flutters quietly across the starry void, the cosmic owl reminds us of the archetype of divine communication, the whisper that fate and free will are woven together, and that dreams themselves are messages from realms beyond our waking comprehension. We can also reflect on characters like Gunther, the penguin who seems harmless, yet carries the archetype of the hidden vessel. Gunter is often comedic, waddling through Ice King's kingdom, yet beneath this mask lies the power of Orgelorg, an ancient cosmic entity. This layering makes Gunter a living expression of the archetype of concealment, the reminder that small, silly exteriors may contain immense, even terrifying depths. In this sense, Gunter reflects a mythic truth often found in folk tales, that the humble, the overlooked, or the strange often conceal the most profound power. Even characters such as Lady Rainicorn or Tree Trunk's unlikely companions embody archetypes of bridge and support. Lady Rainicorn, with her ability to travel across distances and her dual language voice, embodies the archetype of the bridge between worlds. She is both mystical and grounded, a being of magic who also participates in the warmth of family life. Her archetype reminds us of the possibility of connection, of crossing divides that seem impassable. In her, the archetype of the guide and companion comes alive, softer but no less meaningful than the grand archetypes of kings and gods. Adventure Time fills its world with these figures, not always grandiose, but always archetypal. Together, they form a living pantheon where rulers and wanderers, dream messengers and tricksters, shadows and nurturers walk side by side. Archetypes in Ooo do not feel forced or heavy. They emerge naturally, quietly, woven into characters who make us laugh, cry, or wonder. And in doing so, the show reminds us that archetypes themselves are not distant or abstract. They live in stories and personalities, in the ways we imagine and dream. Ooo simply brings them closer to the surface, allowing us to see the timeless patterns hidden in candy kingdoms and night skies. When we step back and look at Ooo as a whole, we begin to see that each character is like a thread in a great dream tapestry, carrying archetypal weight without ever feeling stiff or symbolic. The show allows archetypes to breathe, to play, to stumble and laugh, and sometimes fail. And in that gentle approach, the ancient patterns feel alive again, not as dusty echoes of old myths, but as living beings who surprise us, frustrate us, and even comfort us in the quiet of night. Finn, the hero, embodies the child on a journey, yet he is also the dreamer who learns, grows, and struggles with the limits of his own courage. Marceline, the vampire queen, dances between shadow and light, carrying the archetype of the wounded outcast who transforms pain into song. Princess Bubblegum channels the architect and the scientist, the archetype of the ruler who must constantly balance logic and love. The Ice King wears the crown of the fallen ruler, an archetype softened into tragedy by the tender truth that his madness is not born of malice, but of sorrow and sacrifice. Side by side, these figures form a pantheon of living archetypes, yet they are never trapped by their roles. Unlike mythic figures who often act in predictable patterns, the characters of Ooo twist and bend their archetypes into something more human. Peppermint Butler, with his hidden sorcery, is both ominous and oddly endearing. Hunson Abadir is terrifying, yet strangely clumsy in his attempts at fatherhood. Death himself, so often feared, appears more like a calm official than a terrifying reaper. Even the cosmic owl, who could easily be a solemn oracle, sometimes comes across as distracted or bumbling. These imperfections soften the archetypes, making them approachable, like dream symbols that invite reflection without overwhelming us. This softness is part of what makes Adventure Time so soothing, even when it grapples with heavy themes. Archetypes are often rigid. They stand as eternal symbols of love, death, fate, or chaos. But in Ooo, these archetypes are allowed to live as characters. They spill coffee, sing songs, complain, and smile. They are both more and less than the roles they represent. And that duality gives the show its dreamlike quality, as if archetypes themselves had wandered into a bedtime story and decided to stay a while, curling up in the world of Ooo like familiar companions. Archetypes in Ooo also mirror the balance of the subconscious mind. Just as dreams present us with exaggerated figures that represent aspects of ourselves, our fears, our hopes, our longings, so too do Oo's characters carry these pieces outwardly. The hero's courage, the shadow's hunger, the ruler's responsibility, the trickster's sly grin, the prophet's quiet wisdom. They are dream symbols walking in daylight, inviting us to notice the patterns within ourselves. Perhaps this is why so many of these characters feel both personal and universal, as if we recognize something of ourselves in them, even when they are candy people, penguins, or stars. In this way, Ooo becomes a kind of mirror dream. Each archetype is softened and reshaped, yet together they reflect back the timeless truths of storytelling. That we long for heroes, that we fear endings, that we crave wisdom, that we wrestle with shadow, and perhaps most importantly, that we are never simply one archetype, but a shifting dance of many. Just as Finn is not only a hero, but also a dreamer and a child, just as Marceline is not only a vampire, but also a daughter and an artist, so too are we never fixed. Archetypes are guides, but in Ooo they become companions, reminding us that identity is fluid, ever-changing, ever-growing. By weaving archetypes into candy kingdoms, enchanted forests, and cosmic voids, Adventure Time creates something both familiar and fresh. It does not lecture or impose these patterns. It lets us drift into them gently, almost without noticing. And in that quiet approach, the show invites us to rest, to reflect, and to see the archetypes not only in the world of Ooo, but also in our own lives. As we drift further into this reflection, we can see Oo's archetypes not as rigid, mythic figures, but as bedtime companions, gentle, strange, playful, and wise in their own way. They are the dream versions of myths we have always known, softened into colors, laughter, and quiet sadness. And perhaps that is why they linger in our minds when the episode ends, like dream fragments carried into waking life. In this light, Adventure Time's characters are more than figures in a story. They are reminders of patterns older than memory, patterns that ripple through myth, dream, and imagination alike. They are archetypes, given faces we can smile at, voices we can remember, songs we can hum as we fall asleep. And in Ooo, they are allowed to be more than symbols. They are allowed to be alive. And so, as we let this part of our journey settle, we can rest with the thought that every character, whether grand or silly, light or shadowed, carries within them the timeless shapes of story itself. Archetypes live not only in myths and legends, but in the strange, candy-colored dream of Ooo, reminding us that bedtime stories are not just for children. They are for anyone willing to close their eyes, to listen, and to dream along with the gentle patterns of the world. As we gently leave behind our reflections on archetypes, let us now step into a new dream layer of Ooo, the multiverse itself. In Adventure Time, the world is never just one place, never a single strand of story. Instead, it unfolds like a crystal, each facet reflecting another, shimmering with variations of the same patterns. The multiverse is one of the most mysterious and beautiful aspects of the show, and when we look closely, we find that it is less about chaos and more about mirrors, echoes of possibility that ripple across existence. At first glance, Ooo feels contained. We follow Finn and Jake across forests, dungeons, candy kingdoms, and distant stars. Yet as the series expands, we begin to glimpse hints that this world is only one version among many. alternate timelines, parallel dimensions, and dreamlike reflections begin to surface, each revealing that Ooo is not singular, but part of a great weave. And when we think of the multiverse in these gentle terms, it becomes less a puzzle of science fiction and more a tapestry of possibility, where every thread reflects another. One of the clearest windows into this comes through the farm world universe. Created by the Lich's wish on the Time Room's power, Farm World shows us what Finn's life might have been had the Mushroom War never birthed the strange magic of Ooo. In this version, Finn is not an adventurer among candy people and princesses, but a simple farm boy, drawn into conflict only when ancient power resurfaces. This universe feels grounded, quieter, yet shadowed by the same inevitabilities. The Lich still exists, still seeks destruction, even in this altered timeline. Farm World reveals to us that the multiverse is not random. It is reflective. The same archetypal forces echo even in new circumstances. We also see this reflective nature in the episode Puhoi, where Finn's time inside a pillow fort becomes a lifetime in another reality. There he grows old, marries, raises children, and eventually passes away, only to awaken back in the regular Ooo as though no time had passed. What is fascinating is not the mechanics of how this happened, but the feeling it gives us, that every choice, every small doorway, might lead into another unfolding universe. These universes do not erase one another. They mirror, layering meaning across the multiverse like overlapping dreams. The concept deepens further when we meet Prismo, the Wishmaster who resides outside of linear time. Prismo himself exists as a dream of an old man sleeping, yet his realm becomes a hub where alternate realities can bloom. His presence reminds us that the multiverse of Ooo is inherently dreamlike, formed not only of matter and time, but of wishes, longings, and the shimmering fabric of imagination itself. Prismo's time room is like the heart of this multiversal web, a place where mirrors face mirrors, creating infinite reflections. In this way, Adventure Time's multiverse is not a cold scientific construct, but something softer and more human. It suggests that every what-if, every dream, every version of ourselves that we imagine in the quiet of night might exist somewhere. The multiverse is an echo of the human imagination, woven into Oo's story as gently as threads in a quilt. It is both infinite and intimate, vast and yet personal, because each version of reality reflects something we have wondered about ourselves. As we drift deeper into this reflection, it is worth noticing how Oo's multiverse is not meant to confuse or overwhelm us. Instead, it invites us to slow down and notice the patterns, whether in Farm World, in Puhoi's Pillow Universe, or in Prismo's Timeless Room. The same currents of destiny flow. Heroes emerge, shadows rise, choices echo, endings come, and yet life unfolds again. The multiverse is less about division and more about repetition, less about breaking apart, and more about mirroring back the same story in countless shapes. And just as in a dream, each mirror teaches us something new, even though the symbols remain familiar. Another striking glimpse of Oo's multiverse comes in the episodes that explore alternate versions of beloved characters. In the Fiona and Cake universe, we see gender-swapped counterparts of Finn and Jake, alongside mirrored versions of nearly everyone in the main timeline. At first, this might feel like a playful storytelling experiment, but within the mythic fabric of Ooo, it becomes something more profound. These mirrored identities reflect the same archetypal roles, reshaped but never erased. Fiona is still the hero, Cake still the companion, and Ice Queen still the tragic monarch bound to her crown. These reflections remind us that archetypes are eternal. They manifest in every universe, like constellations that shift but never vanish. What makes the Fiona and Cake world especially fascinating is the way it begins as a story told by the Ice King, a figment of his imagination, and yet it gradually reveals itself to be more than just fantasy. The boundaries between imagined worlds and actual alternate realities blur until they are almost indistinguishable. This blurring suggests that in Ooo, imagination itself has creative power. Dreams and stories are not separate from reality. They are another kind of mirror in the multiversal web. The more we think about this, the more we realize that the multiverse of Ooo may not be an endless sprawl of disconnected worlds, but a living reflection of creativity, where imagination and possibility constantly generate new layers of reality. There is also the strange, haunting mirror offered in the Hall of Egress. Finn, trapped in a cave, experiences an alternate life where he can no longer see the world except through his mind's eye. The episode feels dreamlike and disorienting, yet at its heart, it is a story about perception and reflection. The Hall of Egress mirrors Finn's own inner growth, showing that the multiverse is not always external. Sometimes the mirrors we encounter exist within us, alternate selves we must live through in order to return to the present moment. In this sense, the multiverse of Ooo stretches inward as well as outward, reminding us that countless versions of ourselves live in memory, in imagination, and in choice. And then there is the grand, almost cosmic mirroring of universes shown in Crossover, when Farm World Finn meets our Finn, with Prismo serving as the link between them. Here the mirrors are literal. Two versions of the same person facing one another, both carrying their own burdens, both making their own choices. What is most powerful about this encounter is not the spectacle of multiversal travel, but the intimacy of recognition. To look into another universe is, in a sense, to look into a mirror that shows not only what we are, but what we might have been. It is a gentle, yet profound reminder that the multiverse is less about distance and more about reflection, less about alien worlds and more about hidden versions of ourselves. Adventure Time constantly circles back to this truth. The multiverse is not about escaping the present world, but about understanding it more deeply. Each alternate reality, whether playful or tragic, reveals something about the central story. Farm World shows us the inevitability of the Lich's hunger. Fiona and Cake show us the resilience of archetypal roles. Puhoi reveals how easily a single choice can unfold into an entire life. The Hall of Egress shows that inner worlds can be as vast and mysterious as outer ones. And Prismo reminds us that time, wishes, and dreams all weave together in the fabric of reality. These reflections layer gently, inviting us to see Ooo not as a single line of events, but as a web of possibilities, shimmering softly like a dream before sleep. The more closely we look at these mirrored worlds, the more we see a subtle rhythm underneath them, as though the multiverse itself is humming the same quiet song in many keys. In one version of reality, Finn is the brave adventurer we know. In another, he is a farmer, cautious but still courageous when the moment calls. In a pillow world, he becomes a father and grows old. His life lived in a slower, dreamlike pace. Each reflection changes the details, but the melody remains. The archetype of the hero persists, as if woven into the very structure of existence. This rhythm points us toward an idea that the show never states outright, but always implies that the multiverse of Ooo is not a collection of infinite randomness, but rather a field of repeating shapes. Think of it like a mandala drawn across dimensions, with each reality a different layer, yet all sharing the same symmetry. In Farm World, the Lich still rises, even if the circumstances are different. In Fiona's universe, the Ice Queen bears the same tragic burden as Simon. In Puhoi, Finn still faces the passage of time and the inevitability of loss. The details bend and twist, but the archetypes, the patterns, remain. Perhaps this is why the cosmic owl appears across realities, drifting through dreams that touch all timelines. His presence suggests that even across universes, certain fated encounters cannot be escaped. He is not bound to one world, but to the entire multiverse, serving as a messenger of inevitability. Wherever there is a dream, there is the cosmic owl, and wherever there is a hero, there will be a moment of destiny. This idea softens what might otherwise feel overwhelming about the multiverse, reminding us that even in infinite variation, there are guiding threads, gentle laws of story and myth that hold everything together. Prismo's role in this web is equally important. As the wishmaster who exists outside time, he represents the dreamer whose imagination helps shape these mirrored worlds. When Finn wishes for things to change, Prismo becomes the gateway through which alternate realities unfold. Yet Prismo himself is just a dream of a sleeping man, suggesting that all of these universes may themselves be dreamlike layers of a greater imagination. The implication is both humbling and comforting, that even our grandest universes are still dreams within dreams, reflections within reflections, each real in its own way, yet part of a greater whole. This dreamlike quality becomes especially poignant in moments when Finn confronts the weight of multiple realities. When he sees Farm World Finn, there is no sense of competition or hierarchy between them, only recognition. The two are mirrors of one another, each carrying their own truth. And that recognition is perhaps the most important gift of the multiverse in Adventure Time. It allows us to see that our choices matter deeply, yet they are never the only version of ourselves. Somewhere, in some soft corner of existence, other versions of us walk other paths. This does not diminish our lives, it enriches them, reminding us that we are part of a greater tapestry. The multiverse also serves as a reflection of Oo's post-apocalyptic heart. The Mushroom War fractured the old world and gave birth to new forms of magic. But what if the war had never happened? Farm World provides that answer, and it is striking how much remains unchanged. Even in a peaceful timeline, great forces of shadow still stir, and heroes still rise to face them. This is not a story of cause and effect in the simple sense. It is a story of archetypes and cycles that play out across every mirror. In this way, the multiverse reflects the resilience of myth. Wars may change the surface, crowns may shift hands, but the deeper shapes of story endure. To drift into these mirrors is to drift into a dream where everything is familiar and yet unfamiliar, like walking through a house where every room leads to another version of itself. The walls change color, the windows shift, but the floor plan remains the same. That is the multiverse of Ooo, not 1,000 separate houses, but 1,000 variations of one. And in this dreamlike house, we wander as guests, catching glimpses of what might have been, what could still be, and what always will be. When we step back and look at all these mirrored worlds together, what becomes clear is that Adventure Time is not interested in creating a chaotic sprawl of universes, each separate and disconnected. Instead, it invites us to see the multiverse as a single song sung in many harmonies. Each version of Finn, each reflection of Simon, each echo of the Lich is a verse in the same melody. The differences add texture, but the underlying rhythm is familiar. In this way, the multiverse feels less like a branching tree of random chances and more like a carefully woven mandala of possibility, each part reflecting the whole. This is why even the silliest or most dreamlike alternate worlds carry weight. Puhoi, for example, might be written off as a pillow dream, a diversion in the flow of episodes. Yet within that soft and fabric-filled reality, Finn experiences the fullness of a lifetime. He learns about companionship, about raising children, about aging and loss. And when he returns, none of it is real in the strict sense, yet all of it lingers in his heart. The multiverse reminds us that even imagined lives, even dream selves, shape who we are. They are mirrors not of physical reality, but of emotional truth. The Fiona and Cake universe follows the same logic. Born as a figment of Ice King's imagination, it evolves into something much greater. What began as parody becomes its own universe, complete with its own joys, tragedies, and struggles. And in this transformation, Adventure Time quietly suggests something profound, that our fantasies, our daydreams, our bedtime stories may be no less real than the lives we lead when awake. They live in their own mirrors, carrying meaning, shaping us, and perhaps existing somewhere beyond our knowing. The multiverse is vast enough to hold them all. Even the darkest mirrors, like those touched by the Lich, serve a purpose. They remind us that destruction, hunger, and emptiness are also parts of the pattern. Yet even in those worlds, heroes rise. Choices are made. Small acts of love ripple outward. No mirror is so dark that it loses all light, and no universe is so bright that it avoids shadow. The balance persists, a rhythm that carries through every reflection. Prismo's time room becomes the most comforting symbol of all. A space outside of time, filled with couches and lamps, it is not cold or alien, but cozy and familiar. From this gentle place, entire universes can be born. And perhaps that is the quiet lesson of Oo's multiverse, that infinity itself is not harsh or overwhelming, but soft and domestic, like drifting into a dream on a quiet evening. Infinite mirrors need not terrify us. They can comfort us, reminding us that no matter how many realities unfold, each is held gently within the greater weave. In this light, the multiverse of Adventure Time is not an endless question of what is real and what is not. It is an invitation to see all possibilities as meaningful. Every mirror teaches us something. Every alternate Finn, every dream world, every imagined companion adds to the tapestry. And in the end, it does not matter which is the true world, because they are all true in their own ways, each carrying a piece of the story, each reflecting back the same quiet patterns. As we settle into this reflection, we can see how tenderly Adventure Time handles the idea of infinite worlds. Instead of bombarding us with complexity, it slows us down, showing us that mirrors are gentle things. They are reminders, not confusions. They reflect what we already know in new forms, so that we can recognize truths from another angle. And perhaps, as we drift into sleep, we can imagine that the same is true for us, that somewhere, in some quiet corner of the multiverse, another version of us is resting too, dreaming softly, reflecting back the same gentle light. The multiverse and its mirrors remind us that life is never just one thread, but many, each woven together in ways we cannot fully see. Yet within the weave, the same patterns return: love, loss, courage, shadow, growth. Whether in Ooo, in Farm World, in a pillow fort, or in the dreams of an old man, those patterns remain. And that continuity is soothing. It means that no matter how many mirrors there are, no matter how vast the dream, we are never lost. We are always part of the same story, reflected endlessly, softly, like starlight across still water. When we think of Ooo, our first impression is often chaos, a land born from the ashes of the Mushroom War, where candy people build kingdoms, where ancient monsters rise from the shadows, and where cosmic entities drift through the sky. Adventure Time presents a world that is colorful, unpredictable, and often absurd. Yet the longer we spend in Ooo, the more we notice that beneath the chaos there is always a quiet harmony. The land may seem fractured and wild, but its rhythms are gentle, almost musical, as if the world itself is singing a song of balance. This quiet harmony is most visible in the way opposites are held together. The Candy Kingdom thrives beside fiery wastelands. Magical forests grow beside crumbling ruins. A vampire queen and a candy princess can share friendship, and a boy and his shape-shifting dog can wander freely through it all. Ooo is not ordered, but it is not broken either. It is a place where contradictions coexist, and somehow, instead of collapsing into disorder, they form a strange and peaceful whole. We see this balance reflected in the characters as much as the land. Finn is a hero, but he struggles with doubt and failure. Princess Bubblegum is a ruler, but she is also deeply flawed, capable of mistakes and misjudgments. Even the Ice King, who seems chaotic and dangerous, carries within him the quiet sorrow of Simon Petrikov. Each character holds opposites within them, embodying both strength and weakness, wisdom and foolishness, kindness and cruelty. And yet these contradictions do not cancel each other out. They make the characters more complete, more human, and more harmonious in their imperfection. The same truth echoes in Oo's grander structures. The multiverse, which might appear to be infinite chaos, is instead a reflection of repeating patterns. Archetypes recur, cycles repeat, and every universe, no matter how strange, reflects the same eternal themes. The Lich rises, the hero stands, choices unfold, endings come, and new beginnings follow. It is not chaos at all, but rhythm. A rhythm that may at times feel unpredictable, but which always carries a deeper, soothing order beneath it. This is the quiet magic of Ooo, that chaos is not the absence of harmony, but another way of expressing it. Like a wild symphony, every note may seem erratic on its own, but together they form a song. The surreal adventures, the shifting landscapes, the strange characters who drift in and out. All of these are notes in that melody. Even destruction, even sorrow, even endings have their place in the rhythm. One of the clearest examples of this quiet harmony beneath chaos is the relationship between life and death in Ooo. Death is always present, from the skeletal figure who embodies it to the inevitability of endings in every timeline. Yet life continues, joy persists, and even after loss, stories continue to unfold. When Finn experiences an entire lifetime in Puhoi, death does not silence the meaning of that world. It completes it, giving it shape and closure. In the same way, the end of Simon's life as the Ice King is not only a tragedy, but also a return, a transformation that allows love and memory to resurface. In Ooo, chaos is not denied. It is acknowledged, embraced, and woven into the fabric of life. This is why the world feels both strange and soothing. The Mushroom War may have shattered the old world, but from its ruins grew a place that is endlessly creative, endlessly surprising, and yet strangely balanced. It is a reminder that even in the face of destruction, harmony can emerge, not by erasing chaos, but by living alongside it. And so, as we rest within this final reflection, we can see that Ooo is not a warning of disorder, but a lullaby of resilience. Its landscapes may twist and turn, its characters may stumble and fall, but beneath it all runs a gentle harmony, soft and steady, like the heartbeat of a dream. When we slow down and truly listen to the world of Ooo, it feels almost like listening to a dream that has learned to hum. It is not silence, but neither is it noise. It is the sound of rivers moving through ruined cities, the echo of laughter in a candy village, the hush of the stars above. This harmony is not the kind of order we see in neat rows or strict rules, but something more organic, more alive. It is the balance that emerges when life accepts the presence of chaos, when everything is allowed to exist together. We might notice this in the way Oo's landscapes hold both beauty and ruin. The ruins of human civilization are scattered everywhere. Abandoned subway stations, broken skyscrapers, forgotten machines. Yet they are not left to gather dust. Forests grow through them, rivers run past their walls, animals make their homes among the concrete and steel. Nature does not erase the ruins, nor do the ruins stop nature's growth. Instead, the two coexist, creating scenes of strange beauty. A rusted car becomes the roots of a new tree. A shattered city becomes a playground for strange creatures. From a distance, it looks less like destruction and more like a canvas of quiet rebirth. This is the deeper song of Ooo, that even when things are broken, they do not cease to belong. Nothing is discarded. Nothing is wasted. Chaos reshapes, and harmony gently gathers the pieces together again. The same can be said for the characters. No matter how far they wander from who they once were, they are never fully erased. Think of Simon, lost beneath the weight of the Ice King's crown. For so long, he was a shadow of himself, his true self buried beneath madness. And yet, that part of him was never fully gone. His love for Betty, his kindness, his humanity, it still flickered beneath the surface, glimpsed in quiet moments. Even in his most chaotic state, there was a harmony hidden underneath, waiting for the right moment to emerge. This pattern extends even to the darker forces of Ooo, the Lich's pure destruction, and yet he too becomes part of the cycle. Though he seeks to end all life, the universe does not allow him to stand outside of its harmony. He is transformed, imprisoned, reshaped, whether as a harmless snail or a sweet pea, a child destined for a new life. The chaos of the Lich is terrifying, but it is still gathered back into the balance of things. Even the darkest shadow becomes part of the world's rhythm. Adventure time often shows us that chaos and harmony are not opposites at all, but partners in the same dance. Consider Finn himself. His adventures often spiral into absurdity. He battles giant monsters, stumbles into alternate realities, faces cosmic beings far beyond his scale. Yet every time, these moments of chaos lead him back to understanding, to growth, to a quieter kind of wisdom. His journey is never straight, but it always bends toward balance. Each wound, each loss, each laugh with Jake, every strange detour, together they make him whole. In this way, Ooo mirrors the human heart. We are full of contradictions, full of chaos and calm, sorrow and joy, fear and love. And yet, like Ooo, we do not collapse under that weight. We weave it together, piece by piece, until it becomes our own kind of harmony. Adventure Time invites us to see ourselves in this strange post-apocalyptic land, to recognize that even in our messiness there is beauty. Even in our contradictions, there is balance. There is a reason so many viewers find comfort in Ooo. Beneath the surreal humor and bizarre characters lies a reassurance that everything belongs. Every mistake, every scar, every ending, it all has a place. Harmony is not about perfection. It is about inclusion, about letting the chaos sit beside the calm, the sorrow beside the joy, until they become one. And so, as we drift deeper into this final reflection, we might imagine Ooo not just as a land of adventure, but as a dreamscape teaching us how to live with our own contradictions, to let chaos sing its part, and to trust that harmony will always rise beneath it, like a soft undertone holding everything together. There's something quietly profound about the way Ooo carries its history. Unlike many stories where the past is sealed off, Adventure Time lets the echoes of old worlds linger. The Mushroom War is not forgotten, nor is it fully explained. Instead, its remnants are scattered like whispers, shapes of ruined cities, relics of human technology, creatures mutated by fallout. These fragments could have created a world defined only by destruction. And yet, Ooo is not bleak. It is vibrant, alive, bursting with color and song. The ruins become part of the scenery, not as scars, but as notes in the larger harmony of the land. This reminds us that harmony is not the absence of wounds, but the way they are carried. Ooo is not healed in the sense of returning to what it once was. It is healed by becoming something new. Its balance comes not from erasing chaos, but by folding it into the pattern of life. It is as though the universe itself is saying that even devastation can become part of beauty, that even endings can nourish beginnings. We see this same lesson mirrored in the friendships of Adventure Time. Finn and Jake wander through worlds of danger and absurdity, yet their bond remains a steady rhythm beneath it all. Their friendship holds space for silliness and seriousness alike, for arguments and reconciliations, for laughter that dissolves into tears. In them, we see how harmony is not about avoiding conflict, but about weaving every moment into the shared story of two companions. Marceline and Princess Bubblegum echo this theme in their own way. Their relationship is not simple. It is full of tension, old wounds, and long silences. And yet, when they finally find their way back to each other, it feels like the harmony of Ooo itself, imperfect, tender, and profoundly true. Their love is not free of chaos, but it is all the stronger for surviving it. It shows us that balance does not mean the absence of struggle. It means finding connection through the storm and letting that connection become a quiet anchor. Even the smaller stories of Ooo hum with this undertone of balance. Think of tree trunks, whose whimsical nature seems fragile in a world of monsters and magic. She is gentle, slow, almost out of place, and yet she thrives. Her softness becomes her strength, and her seemingly minor role adds to the greater music of Ooo. Or consider the citizens of the Candy Kingdom, so delicate, so easily frightened, and yet endlessly resilient. Their survival is not in their toughness, but in their ability to find joy amid uncertainty, to dance and laugh even when shadows loom. Harmony beneath chaos does not only exist on the surface of Adventure Time stories, it also shapes its structure. Episodes often begin in absurdity, spiraling into chaos only to arrive at a moment of unexpected calm. A sword fight gives way to a lesson about friendship. A journey into a dangerous dungeon ends with a quiet moment of reflection. Even the wildest adventures circle back to stillness, reminding us that beneath the noise there is always a deeper hum of meaning. This pattern reaches its fullest expression in the show's ending. Come Along With Me is full of battle and turmoil, the last great clash between forces of creation and destruction. But when the dust settles, what remains is not despair, but a gentle reminder that life goes on. The characters rebuild, friendships endure, and new heroes rise. The world is not perfect, but it is balanced. Even as one story closes, another quietly begins. The chaos of war is real, but so is the harmony that follows. What makes this especially powerful is that Adventure Time does not romanticize chaos. It does not pretend that loss or destruction are easy. It shows us the pain, the mistakes, the fear, yet it also shows us that none of these things exist in isolation. Every sorrow exists alongside joy. Every failure sits beside growth. And in that coexistence, harmony emerges. It is this recognition that everything has a place that gives Adventure Time its uniquely comforting tone. Viewers may come for the humor or the adventure, but they stay for the quiet reassurance that underlies it all. The reassurance that our lives, too, with all their contradictions and uncertainties, are part of a larger harmony, That even when things feel broken, even when the world feels chaotic, there's a deeper rhythm holding it all together. And perhaps that is why the world of Ooo, though surreal and strange, feels so much like home. It whispers a truth we long to believe, that nothing is wasted, nothing is meaningless, and that even chaos can sing in harmony if we learn to listen. One of the most striking truths of Adventure Time is how harmony often reveals itself in the smallest, quietest moments. We might think first of the grand stories, the cosmic battles, the rise and fall of kingdoms, the fate of the multiverse. But again and again, the show pulls us back to gentler spaces. Finn sitting by a campfire playing his flute. Jake lying lazily in the grass, watching clouds drift by. Marceline strumming her bass as the night sky spreads above her. These moments are not interruptions in the story, they are the heart of it. They remind us that harmony is not only found after chaos, but within it, in the simple rhythm of being alive. The stillness between adventures is as important as the adventures themselves. Without quiet, the music of Ooo would not be complete. And so the world of Adventure Time teaches us to value both, the noise and the calm, the chaos and the rest. In doing so, it mirrors our own lives where the moments of stillness are what give shape to the noise around them. Even the multiverse itself can be seen as a great balance. Infinite universes exist, each with their own versions of the same themes. Some are strange and absurd, some are dark and sorrowful. Some are light and playful. But together, they create a mirror of infinity where every possibility finds a place. No single world is complete on its own. Harmony arises only when we imagine them all together, each reflecting the others. It is the cosmic version of Oo's lesson, that nothing exists in isolation and everything belongs. In this sense, Ooo is more than a setting. It is a teacher. It whispers lessons through ruins and rivers, through laughter and tears, through songs and silences. It shows us that chaos is not our enemy, but our companion, that the fractures in our world can hold beauty, that the contradictions within us are not signs of failure, but part of our wholeness, and perhaps, most importantly, that even when things end, harmony remains. Think of how the series itself concludes. We say goodbye to Finn and Jake, to Bubblegum and Marceline, to the Candy Kingdom and the Land of Ooo as we have known it. Yet the final scenes are not heavy with loss. They are gentle, full of continuity. A new generation rises. New stories begin. The world carries on. It is not the silence of an ending, but the soft note of harmony continuing into another verse. We do not leave Ooo behind. We carry it with us, humming quietly in our memories. And isn't that what makes it so comforting? Adventure Time does not promise a world without chaos. It does not offer certainty or perfection or control. Instead, it offers something deeper, the assurance that chaos and harmony walk side by side, that endings and beginnings are woven together, and that even when everything feels uncertain, the rhythm of life carries us forward. When we watch Adventure Time, we are not only following the story of a boy and his dog. We are listening to the song of a world that has survived endings and embraced contradictions, a world that hums with quiet harmony beneath its chaos. And in hearing that song, perhaps we learn to hear it in our own lives too, in the way we navigate our struggles, in the way we treasure our small joys, in the way we hold both sorrow and hope within us at the same time. So as we close this long reflection tonight, let's imagine Ooo not only as a place of wonder, but as a gentle mirror of ourselves, a reminder that chaos is not something to fear, but something to live alongside. That within every storm there is stillness, and within every fracture, beauty. that no matter how strange or messy life may seem, there is always a quiet harmony waiting underneath, steady and sure. And as you drift into sleep now, perhaps you can let that lesson sink in. Let the strange melodies of Ooo guide you. Let its balance soothe you. And let its quiet harmony remind you that you too belong, contradictions and all. Good night.